G'day YouTubers, how you all going? My name's Wilfred West, Wilfred's PC World, Lakeside Cottage in Loch Sport, Victoria, Australia. Today's date is the 18th of the 3rd, 2015, and it's 15 to 9 in the morning. I hope you like this video, and if so, please subscribe. Absolutely gorgeous day, isn't it?
a centre-left sign of union, and intense negotiations are no doubt already underway. Matt Brown, ABC News, Tel Aviv.
Vanuatu is warning it faces imminent food shortages as the cleanup continues from one of the Pacific's worst cyclones. There are also mounting concerns about disease and the lack of clean water. Aid agencies are still trying to access the country's smaller outer islands. Flooding has stopped 8 planes from landing. The official death toll has been revised down from 24 to 11, but that is likely to rise. Meanwhile, aid agencies are calling for urgent help to Coromandel Island in south of Vanuatu. The ABC's Ian Cochrane reports from Matilda Bay.
Cyclone Gab sent water and debris right into the village of Mills Bay, biggest on Coromandel Island. Many houses have been destroyed. There were no deaths or serious injuries, partly due to advanced warning by text messages and shortwave radio. However, clean drinking water and food are urgently needed, as are tools to start rebuilding. The United Nations and other aid agencies are trying to get supplies in late today. The assessment of people's needs continues across the island chain. Ian Cochrane from Mills Bay, Coromandel Island, Vanuatu.
Town in Queensland, far north of the seems to be in the path of tropical cyclone Nathan. The second time in a week, yesterday hurricane. The National Park seems to have found water. Like the lake needs to cool down and expected to begin moving towards the coast as it intensifies later today, strengthening to a Category 3 before it makes landfall early Friday. The Cookshire Council has already applied for natural disaster relief funding to carry out repairs on roads damaged by Cyclone Nathan last week. But the Mayor, Peter Scott, says its immediate focus is preparing for what the cyclone's likely to bring next.
The combination of the storm surge and the high tide could have could create a bit of a problem for us.
Far North Queensland councils are making sandbags available today. The cyclone watch is in place between Cardwell and Cowan. Indonesia's Attorney General maintains plans for the next round of executions are proceeding, even though legal uncertainty surrounds their timing. 2 Australians are still in line for the firing squad, as Greg Jennett reports from Jakarta.
Drug smugglers Andrew Chan and Myron Sukumaran have been held on their execution prison island in central Java for 2 weeks. Of the next group of death row prisoners scheduled to be killed, 6 have some form of legal appeal underway. Indonesia's attorney, H.M. Prasetyo, has told reporters he's waiting for those processes to finish and the shootings will then go ahead. Asked if a mini-summit of world leaders in Jakarta and Bandung next month would force the delay, the attorney said the conference would make visiting leaders see that Indonesia's standing firm against drugs. Greg Jennett, ABC News, Jakarta.
A former manager at the Commonwealth Bank has been arrested in Sydney on bribery charges after an investigation involving New South Wales Police and the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the United States. Michelle Brown has more. Police will allege the 61-year-old US national took bribes in return for granting a lucrative contract to an American IT company. Detectives on the case have frozen $1.5 million US so far. The former IT manager was arrested yesterday in Surrey Hills, refused bail, and is due to face 2 bribery charges in Central Local Court today. Meanwhile, detectives from the Fraud and Cyber Crime Squad are working with the FBI in the US to find another of the bank's former IT managers over the case. It began earlier this year after an internal audit uncovered suspicious payments in the manager's accounts. Police are calling for witnesses to come forward after a young woman was stabbed to death in a Melbourne reserve late yesterday. Police were called to Doncaster in Melbourne's east after reports of a woman in distress. Police say the woman was stabbed several times in the upper body. They believe she was going for a walk when she was attacked. A former Australian negotiator on medicines says that the federal government can't dismiss a scaremongering concerns about the massive costs involved in a new trade deal being struck in secret. Here's North American correspondent Michael Vincent.
Dr. Ruth Lowford was the primary negotiator in medicines in the 2004 Australia-US trade deal. Back then, American pharmaceutical giants would block increasing costs of medicines by Australia's opinions. Which appears a new trade deal involving the US, Japan and other Pacific nations will allow reduced competition for new drugs by extending patents and other provisions.
That will increase the costs of medicines to the government, to the taxpayer, not to the business. And I think that would be a disaster for Australia.
Trade Minister Andrew Robb said the government hasn't conceded anything and is not in agreement to increase protection for drug companies.
giving a clear read on whether the local share market will follow suit. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.7 of 1% to finish at 17,849. The S&P 500 lost a third of 1% to 2,074. In local futures, the ASX SPI 200 is just a single point higher at 5,837. The Australian dollar worth 76.2 US cents. Time now for sport. It's Good Morning to Chris Classic.
Yes, good morning to you, Laura. We're getting some pretty interesting breaking news in rugby league, where the Sydney Roosters prop Martin Kennedy is reportedly set to receive an infraction notice from the Australian Sports Anti-Doping Authority. According to 7 News, Kennedy could be handed the notice today, prompting a 2-year ban. Asada was rumoured to be looking at Kennedy in late 2013 in relation to the case that saw Sandor Earl banned in August 2013.
More Kangaroos again
the pair, who attended Matraville Sportside together, played at the Roosters in 2009, and Earl is currently fighting a 4-year suspension for trafficking banned substances. More details, obviously, as they come to hand on that story. South Africa's cricket side will be looking to shed its tag as World Cup chokers when it takes on Sri Lanka in today's first quarter-final at the SCG.
I've still got yesterday's videos to work on, so I'll let those Kangaroos be. I could sit down there for hours just filming them, but
25 degrees. We're in for a possible shower or storm today, reaching a maximum of 32. In Sydney at the moment, it is 23 degrees, reaching a maximum of 30 today. And it's going to be a shower or two for you as well. Pretty much the same for most cities, in fact. Canberra, shower or two, heading for a top of 30 as well. It is 15 right now. In Melbourne, it's going to be a little cloudy with a shower or two here and there, 20 to 25 degrees. Hobart, a shower or two. It's 18 right now. A maximum expected of 24 for you today. In Adelaide, 19, a sunny afternoon on the way, a little cloudy to start, heading for a top of 30. In Perth, 20 degrees right now with some showers about, but they should be easing by the afternoon, reaching a maximum of 24 degrees. And the Bureau says Darwin is going to expect a possible afternoon storm today and a top of 32, right now 28. You are listening to ABC News Radio. Good morning, it's Wednesday the 18th of March and it's 9:15 Eastern Daylight Time, 8:45 in South Australia, 8:15 in Queensland. In the Northern Territory it's 7:45 and it's 6:15 in Western Australia.
ABC News Radio headlines.
Unofficial exit polls show the result of Israel's election is balanced on a knife edge. But even before the votes have been tallied, the country's Prime Minister is already claiming a major victory for his party on Twitter. Independent Senator Jackie Lambie has called for the Education Minister, Christopher Pyne, to resign after the government's higher education reforms again failed to pass the Senate. A vote last night on the legislation was lost 34 votes to 30. And a former senior employee of the Commonwealth Bank has been arrested and charged after a bribery investigation involving New South Wales Police and the US FBI. Police are providing an update at the moment. We'll bring you more on that as it comes to hand. Well, first, Vanuatu's government has warned that the Pacific nation faces imminent food shortages in the wake of Cyclone Pam. Relief agencies say conditions are among the most challenging they have faced, with concerns mounting that disease and a lack of clean water could lead to more deaths in the region. The UN has revised the death toll down from 24 to 11. Aid should begin to reach the islands of Tanna and Erromango today, which both took the full force of the cyclone on Friday night. Rapid assessments of the islands have shown absolute devastation, with entire villages destroyed. The ABC's Liam Cochrane travelled to one island south of Vanuatu's capital, where residents have run out of clean drinking water.
This is the first time that aid workers have managed to get to Dillon's Bay on Erromango Island to the south of Port Vila in Vanuatu. The damage here is extensive. Cyclone Pam passed right by this small village. Miraculously, the 600 people here sheltered in a church and another strong building. There were no deaths and no serious injuries reported. However, the needs of people are urgent. There is no safe drinking water. The water from the river has been contaminated, and locals estimate they only have about 3 days worth of food left. The United Nations is here with other aid agencies to assess the damage, and across Vanuatu these kinds of assessments are going on to try and triage which parts of the country most urgently need assistance.
Well, that was Liam Cochrane reporting there, and as you heard in the report, aid idea yet as to how difficult it's going to be to get resources to these people?
Well, we know it's going to be difficult, but what's more important is that we're actually now seeing that humanitarian staff are on the ground in many places. There is a ferry, for example, that's full of relief supplies which should arrive at Tanner Island, and that's home to nearly 30,000 people. The fact that we're actually starting to get emergency packed water treatment chemicals so people can make sure that they're not exacerbating an already very challenging situation by getting disease from water. That sort of stuff is able to start to get out to people. So we're hoping that there can be some relief. But as I've said, the bulk of the population of Vanuatu is spread out on their island. It's very challenging indeed.
Is it a matter of hours, days or weeks before the aid actually starts to reach these islands?
I think it has to be a matter of hours and days. It can't be weeks. There are people without food, there are people without water that they can drink. The important thing for your listeners to understand, I guess, is that the humanitarian assistance is being coordinated. One of the roles that Oxfam plays is to play that coordinating role. The key is that we don't duplicate efforts, that we get the first response out to people to keep people alive and healthy, so we can then do the second response and deal with the second and third emergencies, which are often disease as a result of poor sanitation conditions and other exacerbations because of the lack of appropriate cover and housing.
Who has Oxfam been helping so far, and what are people most in need of?
Well, Oxfam has been coordinating the response with the other INGOs, so we're working with our colleague organisations, and the first response is pretty immediate. It's hygiene packs to actually enable people to have soap, for example, to wash themselves, to have treatment materials to put in the water so that it can be drunk, to have temporary shelter through tarpaulins or blankets that are given to them, and to have some first help with actually food to keep them going. In addition to that, and this is not part of our primary brief, but we're working with our colleagues because many people would be injured as a result of the debris and the impact of the cyclone, and so there is a need for an emergency response in terms of medical treatment for people as well. And we've already seen the Australian government has sent medical teams into Vanuatu to help with a health system that was probably struggling there anyway. So the first response is always going to be water, food and shelter. And given the extent of the devastation across the islands of Vanuatu, it's critical that we get to as many people as we can.
That's Oxfam Australia Executive Director, Dr. Helen Zoki.
ABC News Radio. News now.
Well, let's get more now on that developing story in New South Wales this morning. The arrest of a former senior Commonwealth Bank worker as part of a bribery investigation which involved state police and the FBI in the United States. Detective Superintendent Arthur Katsogiannis has been providing an update on the case. Let's listen in to some of what he's had to say.
With the corporate sector and the business community. They are 100% supportive behind this, and there is no appetite for any type of corporate behaviour or criminal behaviour by white-collar criminals. My message to any white-collar criminal out there...
My name's Wilfred West, Wilfred's PC World, Lakeside Cottage and Loch Sport, Victoria, Australia, signing off. Thank you for watching my videos, and all comments are welcome. You all have a great day now.